I've actually dabbled in fly fishing on and off for well over 40 years, but across the course of those years it's gradually become the kind of fishing that I enjoy the most. Unfortunately, because of my job as a fishing communicator, I can't just fly fish all the time. There's not a big enough audience, especially in Australia. I have to write about lure fishing and bait fishing and everything else as well, so I need to do a lot of those things. But when I have some me time and want to go fishing and really enjoy myself, it's the fly rod that I reach for. The biggest piece of advice that I could give to anyone getting started in fly fishing is to spend a few bucks and get some professional fly casting lessons. Don't just teach yourself how to fly cast like I did 45 years ago. I picked up a whole lot of bad habits that are probably going to stick with me for life. Just get a lesson or two. It makes a massive difference. I think what I love most about fly fishing is the direct contact that it gives you with the fish. The fact that you've got the line in your hand when you hook that fish. It's almost like hand lining. And the other really good thing about it is it allows us to present really small or lightweight imitations of food sources to fish that we just couldn't get out there any other way. Three things that you need to know about fly fishing are, first of all, don't overcomplicate it. It's just another form of lure fishing using a different way to get a lure out into the water. Secondly, you don't have to spend a fortune to get into fly fishing. You can buy quite good gear these days for a couple of $100 and get started. And thirdly, you don't have to be able to cast like Mel Krieger or Lefty Kreh to be a fly fisherman and to catch fish. When people ask me how hard is it to get into fly fishing, I like to answer that the first 20 years are the hardest. It's a joke, but it's also quite serious. You are on that learning curve for a long, long time. In fact, I'd argue that you never get off it. But you can be fly fishing from the first day. You just might not be doing it as proficiently as you're going to be in a couple of months or a couple of years' time. And that applies whether you're fishing in freshwater, saltwater, and for whatever species you're chasing. You don't need any real experience at all to get started in fly fishing, and I've seen people catch fish on fly at their very first attempt. I know when my wife Jo first started fly fishing up in the Territory 6, 7, 8 years ago, she was catching fish almost straight away. I think one of the commonest problems that people encounter in fly fishing is the difference between what I call grass casting, getting out in a park on a nice calm day and punching out a whole lot of line, and actual practical fishing. When you get out there into the field and you're dragging line through the water, you've got a breeze in your face, and then suddenly a fish pops up at an angle you never expected, it's very, very different to casting in the park, and you need to get your head around that. The other common error I see is people trying to cast too far and putting too much energy into their casting, and it most often translates itself into that one too many false casts. People get a fair bit of line out there and then they figure if they just go for one more false cast they'll get that bit more line out. Normally the whole loop collapses, they don't get as far as they were the first time, or if they do get out there maybe a metre further they might have a wind knot in their leader or whatever. Just back off, relax, slow down, be happy to make 40 or 50 foot casts rather than trying to make 60, 70, 80 foot casts. If you make 50 casts that are 30 or 40 feet long in an hour, you're going to cover a lot more water than someone who works twice as hard to get their line out 70 or 80 feet and only makes half as many casts. Well, it seems obvious, but the best way to improve as a fly fisherman is to go fly fishing. The more often you go fishing, the better you'll get at it. And perhaps for me, the biggest secret has been to actually leave the other gear at home, leave the spin gear and the bait caster at home in the shed and just take the fly rod and make yourself fly fish. And the other thing is just read and study as much as you possibly can about the sport. There's so much good information out there these days and great YouTube videos to watch and all sorts of things that are going to teach you a lot more about your fly fishing, so soak it all up. If I had one secret to impart to anyone getting involved in fly fishing, it's this: you'll never catch a fish unless your fly is in the water. I see a lot of people get carried away with the whole casting process, watching their loops in the air, and they get quite delighted when it all goes well. You need to remind yourself that every now and again you've got to actually put that fly on the water or into the water to catch a fish. Just keep reminding yourself it's just a form of lure fishing using a different presentation technique. Your fly does its work once it gets into the water. There's still some great magazines around. The Australian magazine Fly Life is definitely worth reading, but there's also so much good stuff online these days. I learn a lot just by watching YouTube videos of people showing casting styles or how to tie flies, how to work flies, targeting different species. There really is more information at our fingertips than we've ever had in the past, so there's no excuse for not doing your homework and finding out a bit about what it is that you're trying to achieve. You can find me on both Facebook and Instagram at Starlo's Fishotopia, but these days Joe and I are putting most of our efforts and energy into our fishotopia.com website portal. It's got both a free section and a paid subscription area. Jump on and have a look, fishotopia.com, and there's also a free monthly newsletter that you can sign up to. I'll catch you there. Tight lines.
Wow.